Trump's second term and the transatlantic rift. Donald Trump's return to the White House in 2024 sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. His America First rhetoric, once dismissed as campaign bluster, had morphed into a concrete foreign policy doctrine. Traditional alliances, long considered the bedrock of the post-war order, seemed to hold little value in Trump's transactional worldview. Europe, accustomed to American leadership, found itself increasingly at odds with Washington's approach to global affairs. Trump's disdain for multilateral institutions, his embrace of authoritarian strongmen, and his willingness to upend decades of diplomatic protocol created deep unease among European leaders. The transatlantic relationship, already strained during Trump's first term, appeared to be on the brink of collapse. The appointment of loyalists like Mike Pompeo and Marco Rubio to key cabinet positions signaled a hardening of Trump's foreign policy stance. These individuals, known for their hawkish views and skepticism of international cooperation, seemed to confirm Europe's worst fears. The Trump administration, it was becoming clear, was prepared to prioritize American interests, even at the expense of its closest allies. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, long considered the cornerstone of European security, faced an existential crisis under Trump's second term. The president's repeated criticisms of the alliance, his demands for increased defense spending from member states, and his questioning of NATO's relevance in the 21st century had sown doubt and division within the organization. Trump's decision to engage in direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin without consulting or informing European allies further undermined NATO's credibility. The exclusion of Ukraine, a key NATO partner facing ongoing Russian aggression, from these discussions heightened anxieties about Washington's commitment to European security. Trump's actions appeared to embolden Russia, which had long sought to weaken NATO and drive a wedge between the United States and its European partners. As the transatlantic rift widened, many feared that NATO could become increasingly irrelevant, leaving Europe vulnerable to Russian pressure and potential aggression. The alliance, once a symbol of Western unity and resolve, was now teetering on the precipice. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine took on a new dimension in the context of Trump's second term. What began as a regional territorial dispute had morphed into a broader geopolitical struggle, pitting Russia's authoritarianism against Europe's commitment to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Putin's invasion of Ukraine was not simply about seizing land. It was a calculated attempt to expand Russian influence, undermine the European Union, and challenge the liberal world order. The Kremlin, threatened by Ukraine's aspirations for closer ties with the West, had chosen to respond with brute force. Trump's apparent willingness to appease Putin, his echoing of Russian propaganda that blamed Ukraine for the conflict, and his disinterest in providing meaningful support to Kyiv, raised serious concerns among European leaders. The Ukraine war, once seen as a test of Western resolve, was now becoming a symbol of transatlantic division and American retreat from the world stage. Section 4. An unreliable partner, Europe's growing distrust of the United States. The Trump administration's actions had profound implications for Europe's perception of the United States. The days of unquestioning trust and reliance on American leadership were fading, replaced by a growing sense of uncertainty and distrust. Trump's unilateralism, his disregard for international norms, and his willingness to prioritize personal relationships over long-standing alliances had shattered the illusion of American exceptionalism. Europe, once accustomed to viewing the United States as a guarantor of peace and stability, was now forced to confront the reality of an unpredictable and unreliable partner. The transatlantic relationship, built on shared values and a common commitment to democracy, was fraying at the seams. Europe, facing a resurgent Russia, a rising China, and a host of internal challenges, could no longer afford to rely on an America that seemed increasingly inward-looking and indifferent to the concerns of its allies. A new era was dawning, one in which Europe would need to chart its own course in a world without American guarantees. Section 5, Charting a New Course, the quest for European strategic autonomy. As the transatlantic relationship faltered, calls for greater European strategic autonomy gained momentum. The idea, long debated in European capitals, centered on the need for the European Union to develop its own independent capabilities in defense, foreign policy, and security. Proponents of strategic autonomy argued that Europe could no longer afford to rely on the United States for its security. They pointed to Trump's erratic behavior, his questioning of NATO's relevance, and his willingness to cut deals with adversaries like Russia as evidence that Europe needed to take its destiny into its own hands. Achieving strategic autonomy would require a fundamental shift in European thinking. Member states would need to overcome their historical divisions, pool their resources, and invest significantly in defense and security. It would also require a willingness to assert European interests on the world stage, even when those interests diverged from those of the United States. The path to strategic autonomy would be fraught with challenges, but for many Europeans it was becoming increasingly clear that this was the only way to ensure their security and defend their values in a world where the United States could no longer be relied upon.